Mr. President.
I need a gavel. Come on.
Don't give him a hammer.
Sledgehammer.
I think Charlotte she needs more sunlight. More beach
It's
time.
Monday, it's Monday.
Should have enough beach time.
This weekend, every time the sun came out,
All right.
the clouds rolled in.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everybody to the work session here. First one at 10:30 a.m. on Monday, June 2nd. I would say that it's much better dealing with traffic today than it was in prior days.
Let's hope that
I'd
continues.
say that was a success. So
All right.
start with the roll there,
Yep.
Mr. Secretary Treasurer.
Scott Horowitz.
Here.
Ed Warner here. Chip Marin.
Here.
Joe McLaughlin.
Here.
And Matt Parsons.
Present.
We're all here, Mr. President.
All right, let's get started. We have some discussions on here today.
Scott.
First one, you got Ligony Brook culvert replacement.
Excuse me, Scott, your mic is off.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Matt.
Got it.
Thank you. It's a whole new thing here.
Ligony Brook.
Pushing buttons.
Yeah, I need money.
My name is Mike Martini, and I'm a wildlife biologist with Seatuck Environmental Association.
I don't think that mic's on, is it?
Is it green or red?
That's red.
It's
Green now.
There we go.
Okay,
Thank you.
my name is Mike Bettini. I'm a wildlife biologist with Seatuck Environmental Association, and I've been studying river otters since 2008. They're recolonizing Long Island after being decimated from many places, including Long Island, mostly due to the fur trade, unregulated trapping in the 1700s. And I want to thank you for allowing me to speak about a project coming up. So just a little background, we don't know exactly when they were extirpated from Long Island, but Decay, a famous naturalist, mentions that they were gone by the mid-1800s. And then Paul Connor did the last mammal survey for Long Island. His field work was done in the early 60s. And he didn't find any evidence of established home ranges on Long Island of river otters. So New York State, DEC, and Seatuck coordinated a mammal survey for Long Island that's still ongoing. We're in the last 6 months of the survey. It's a 3-year project. And this is one of the mammals that we're looking at. So we have a good map of the distribution of otters here. And based on my work since 2008, it's become apparent that collisions with motor vehicles are the main source of otter mortality on Long Island. Not surprising. We have a high road density here. And the question was, can this be mitigated? And what I've learned is that about a third of the road kills can be attributed to dams. Pretty much every tidal creek on Long Island has a dam, dating back to when they were used for mills, various things like that. And this is in Flanders. This is off of Route 24. This is Birch Creek Pond, in the Hubbard County area. Hubbard Creek area, and even something as small as 18 inches poses a problem for the otter. And these are all easily mitigated. So in this case, half a dozen cinder blocks, make a little staircase. The otters find using that. And this is I don't know. James, is there a way to show a video on your end? Yep. Might be able to do it with it. Yeah, there you go. So this is a mother that just jumped into the water and 2 pups. So they're crossing from the tidal creek into the freshwater pond. And I also have muskrat using this. So this would be useful for other semi-aquatic mammals like muskrat and mink is another one. So those are easy to deal with. Overland crossings between watersheds are, they account for about 2/3 of the known otter road kills, and they're really tricky to mitigate. They would require usually a culvert under a road. So this is another site in Southampton that we are going to be trying to get permission to restore, and actually, believe it or not, there is a culvert under Montauk Highway here. So this is where otters are traveling in the Long Pond Greenbelt from Poxabog Pond to the Sag Swamp Preserve. And John White helped me locate the old culvert there that's crushed at the north end, but you can see some evidence of the structure there. So we have to work with the state to do that. And this was attempted in a site in Northport, where it's one of the top 3 roadkill sites on Long Island. And wildlife crossing signs don't really work. They're ineffective. Otters are traveling at night. They're very low to the ground. They wait and just shoot across quite fast on land. And people just hear a bump, they don't even see the animal generally. So that's been ineffective. So this is the situation at Ligony Brook. This is an intermittent stream that connects Sag Harbor Coves with Long Pond and the Long Pond Greenbelt. And it is occasionally, in some years when the water's high enough, it's used by alewives. Eels can use it most years. They don't really need running water to get up or down and through this culvert. But this culvert is, so in February, there was an otter that did not use the culvert, which is very unusual. It got hit crossing the Bridgehampton Turnpike here by Mashhashimia Park. And the only reason I could think of why it wouldn't use the culvert and try and cross a road, which they really want to avoid, is that the culvert is clogged up and doesn't provide a through passage. So I learned from the county that they're doing a lot of work in that area, and part of their work is to replace the existing culvert under the turnpike. So that's the round culverts on the left side of the screen, and the rectangular culvert on the right side of the screen is the east end of the culvert. It's also, that section's also owned by the county. It's a little complicated though, because Sag Harbor Village bought a piece of property in between, in the middle of the culvert, and it's about 40 feet of culvert. And so I met with them on Friday and discussed this project. So I just want to make sure everyone knows what's going on. You folks are going to have to be involved in approving this because it does involve the stream bed. And the Nature Conservancy is very interested in this because they have a lot of investment in Long Pond Greenbelt. It's their flagship for Long Island because of so many rare species there. So staff person, Josh LaFontaine, whose expertise is looking at wildlife passages, he looked into this and drew up some plans, which I sent to James. It's about 8 pages. And he's recommending that the culvert be upgraded, which the county plans to do under the turnpike. But the rest of the culvert system, it's 130 feet of culvert. The rest of the system be just removed and the stream bed restored. There's really no need for a culvert under the grass there. And that's the preferred option. And this is what a wildlife-friendly passage would look like. It has dry areas on the sides of the culvert that other animals could use that don't want to really go in the water. So, this is just thanks to people that have helped support this project. So I'd like to know if you have any questions or thoughts on the matter.
I have a question.
Yeah.
the part of the culvert that you say doesn't need to be there, and I am imagining you want to take it out, correct?
Yeah, so
Okay, who owns the property that's dry now that's going to become wetlands? You mean?
okay, obviously the stream is running under the, through the culvert, yeah. So that part of it, the middle part is owned by Southampton, Sag Harbor Village, the land.
Mhm.
And then the very far eastern part by Reed Brothers is owned by the county. And, one of the goals is to get everybody on the same page. The county's going to be in there with all this heavy equipment.
Yeah.
They own the two ends. The village would really like them to help out with the
What
mill
I'm saying
fees.
is
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's not a private landowner who's now being created as a stakeholder in having somewhat of a veto power to.
Right. There was some question about the homeowner to the north of Reed Brothers on the other side of Ligony Brook. They bought a piece of property that includes I don't know if you're familiar with this spot. It's called Glover Street it's a concrete roadway that just makes a semicircle kind of from one end on the turnpike to the other end on the turn. Reed Brothers uses the south end. This homeowner wanted to buy it because Reed Brothers was using it for parking right in front of his house. So he bought a piece of that, but he doesn't own all the way down to Ligony Brook. That's a good question.
In the process of doing the culvert reconfiguration, are you taking in consideration the, basically the LYs and the elbows that are in this area, and when it's high enough, the water table's high enough that they're headed up to the,
Long pond.
So you.
And back down.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this, river otter or muskrat, I guess ladder takes in consideration the fish and the other user species also, correct?
Absolutely. So this doesn't actually require any kind of like ladder or stairway or anything. It's just going to be a stream bed going through the culvert. The beauty of what Josh, who's an expert on this, and I defer to him as the guy who's done a lot of wildlife-friendly culvert passage designs, is that it brings the culvert's length down to about 35 feet. It's easy to maintain. Right now we have two 30-inch round concrete culverts that go about 40 feet. And we have, I think it's a dry well. It's a rectangular box that takes some of the road runoff. Then we have a rectangular concrete culvert at the east end. And, where the leaf litter and branches and muck has all accumulated to clog it up, I don't know, it's 130 feet long. Yeah. I don't even know how you would actually get in there and clean that out. So this is going to be, if we go with this, and the county has to get on board with Josh's recommendation, it's going to be easy to maintain in the long run.
We've had Boy Scouts volunteer to do the cleaning up, and a few individuals that live down there. Day Dayton is one of them.
Oh, right, for the stream bed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely.
we've
Yeah.
maintained that, so I know,
Right.
I know this is a further down towards the bay, and it has been a problem child for many years.
So beyond the regulatory, as far as us signing on to this project because we own the stream bed, is there anything else that you're asking for at this time, like a letter of recommendation from the county, or?
That might be helpful, but I have to meet with the county again to see where they're. So one of the beauties of this is they haven't done the design yet. We met with the new county DPW commissioner, Charles Bartha.
Yep.
He replaced Hillman.
Yep.
And great guy. He was very receptive, and he said, "This is, we can do this because we haven't started doing the design work for the culvert at this point. So it's perfect timing."
I mean, it just seems like a good project, especially for flooding purposes and
Yeah.
letting, like instead of just trying to get everything through a 30-inch pipe, you're actually.
And he's well aware that he has to get in touch with the trustees over this. And you guys, by the way, you still have the record for the best alewife run on Long Island. Alewife Creek.
This will improve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's we did with the one thing got done, the north end, the culvert on under Noyak Road,
Yeah.
and the culvert under North Sea Road really needs some work. I mean, the asphalt's getting in the creek at this point. It's crazy.
It's collapsing.
You're going to lose the guardrail pretty soon.
You already did.
It already went.
They've got enough barrels and stuff there to, it's nothing more than a scenic looking.
Well, that's a county road as well.
Yeah. Well, there is a whole project that's slated for that,
Yeah,
but that culvert was
yeah.
never really part of the project. That was the
Yeah.
was the issue.
Yeah.
And every spring we send our marine maintenance to clean out that whole entire stream bed all the way up to Big Fresh. So it's
And you guys did a pretty creative thing. I think it might have been Havemeyer years ago.
With
He
the
set
stone?
up some parking concrete
yeah.
slabs just to get more water so they can make that jump up
That-
over the
That
apron.
was help with Chuck Bowman helped us on that project. That was when I first became a trustee. That was a long time ago.
Right.
But it's worked well.
Yeah. Still working. That's
Yep.
still getting up there.
Any-
I think it would be just keep us abreast of the progress
Yeah,
you make it
we
with
will.
the
I'll
county.
keep you in the
and-
loop. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, if
that'd
you
be
do
great.
need something from us for the county after you have that next meeting, you let us know.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep up
Thank
the
you.
good work.
All right, the next on the agenda here is Cornell Cooperative Extension Marine, back to the bays discussion. Come on up. Wherever you like, you can sit here if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, sit here. You can sign in. State your names for the record.
Kate Rossi Snook.
And Kim Barber with Cornell Cooperative Extension Marine Program.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Nice to see you.
Yes, thank you for having us. I realize it's been a little bit since we came and gave an update, so Scott had invited us, so here we are. We have a couple asks toward the end, but I also wanted to kind of ease the transition. As you know, Greg Rivara, who had been working with us for years and years, retired, so we're trying to reconfigure things internally, and Kate's actually stepped up as one of our aquaculture specialists and working with Harrison Toby to kind of take over Greg's responsibilities. And then specifically for Back to the Bays, she's our stewardship site coordinator, so all the great work we're doing at all of our sites throughout the East End. Kate's in charge of permitting and making sure we're producing the shellfish and doing the habitat restoration and all the great things. So I more want to pass it off to her formally, but we appreciate you having us today, and we'll give you a little rundown of what we have going on.
Yeah, so instead of like a slide deck kind of presentation, I just kind of put together some overview documents. I'm not sure if you have this printed out or anything. Might be a little easier as a printout, but I can always send that to you afterwards, after this meeting. Just what is Back to the Bays, right? So I have been here in front of you guys with my colleague Mike Patricio talking about the shellfish seeding program that the town funds, that you guys fund. So this is the Back to the Bays aspect of my work, which is the really hammering home the stewardship, the volunteer opportunities, the engagement, because the idea is that the path of stewardship allows people to better understand and grasp all this restoration work we're doing, and therefore really get behind it. And at each of our stewardship sites, the main work that we focus on is, as Kim said, habitat restoration. So the eelgrass and upland plantings, and then oyster reefs and other shellfish seedings that we do more as like restoration, like seeding hard clams with eelgrass, because acknowledging that the hard clams benefit the eelgrass and vice versa, rather than being meant to be harvested in just a few years. So just overview of all the work that we have been doing and hope to be doing within Southampton Town Waters. Sag Harbor, we started as a new stewardship site last year after receiving a wave of community support to start that, and that meant reinvigorating our eelgrass plantings at Sag Harbor Shoals is what we call it, outside the breakwater, kind of off havens. As well as starting a spat on shell oyster reef, which I do need to get into the water to check on very soon. And future plans for that is hopefully being able to add to that reef and monitor and continue planting in the eelgrass meadow. We also recently planted some overwintered bay scallops in that eelgrass meadow, so looking to check on their survival and any signs of successful spawning. And then Hampton Bays are, of course, our big site, Tiana Bayside. We are continuing to operate our camps and wonderful education programs out of there, as well as continue to operate the Bay Scallop Nursery that Harrison kind of manages, and continue to plant spat and shell oysters. My monitoring from previous plantings have shown incredible, shocking growth. And we're really, you'll see future plans there, if you can kind of see, it's bolded, renew and expand the designated sanctuary site. That is a primary reason why we're here today. Is that 5-acre sanctuary that you guys designated for us to work with, and that's the eelgrass planting, scallop plantings, hard clam seeding, and spat and shell reef planting. That has expired, and we want to continue to do that work. And so we're hoping that you guys might renew that sanctuary and possibly expand it. And I do have a graphic at the end to show you where we're envisioning expanding it, primarily to better suit the spat on shell reef plantings. We've previously done the plantings from a boat, and it's just, you have less control over where it's going, and so we're finding at our other stewardship sites, when we deploy the spat on shell, essentially by hand, just walking out at low tide in more shallow areas, you have a lot more control over the shape that you're creating as the reef, and then it's also easier for monitoring as well. Engagement and getting people to be part of those stewardship opportunities. And then Quag is a new, or East Quag rather, is a new exciting opportunity that's come up for us. Southampton Town Parks or CP?
So we've been working with Parks. We have a facility use agreement to do a minimal amount of work there this year, while we hope to work to get a larger license agreement to operate the actual buildings on site. But that's, again, another part of our asks today to hopefully be able to be using that as a nurse.
Yeah, we're essentially wanting to receive your blessing to operate here. I was able to get DEC permit to have a clam flepsy there, and as well as a small remote setting tank, based off of the small one that I have been operating for the last few years on Shelter Island very successfully. People love to check on it themselves. So we're kind of going off of that more educational rather than mass produce the spat and shell, the smaller production, heavy on the education. So we're just kind of hoping you'll also allow us.
Pine Neck Marina, East Quag,
Yep.
on the inside area.
Yep, exactly. And then also a big part of this is South Fork Shell Recycling site. I've been operating for the Back to the Bays program, that full circle. Again, not massive shell collection. We're trying to collect just the amount of shell that we need to use for all of our stewardship sites. But that is at Sylvester Manor on Shelter Island, just because that's where I live, and we have a relationship, a formal partnership with Sylvester Manor for this, but got permission from Southampton Town to also have like a South Fork shell recycling site, which will make that aspect of our work very, very efficient, especially if we have community members who have asked us if they can bring their own shell there, and we have the community collection bins as well.
We had done a site at Triton, the trustees, we actually went to Point Lookout and got, trailers full of skimmish clam shells.
Okay.
So when we did our, shell restoration and oyster restoration in Mecox, that's where our shell came from. So we stored it over there, but the problem is everybody was running it over and
Exactly,
and people
yeah.
were taking buckets of shells and, all of a sudden our mountain of shells dwindled to absolutely nothing over
Right,
there.
right.
So wherever you put your shells, you have to have it so that people don't take it from you.
Yes, and what's worked out well at the Sylvester Manor Shell Recycling Site is I have like 3 small piles that I rotate, kind of almost like a rotating compost program, but each pile is labeled and I have a sign that I can change that says open versus closed, like meaning open to receive shell versus like these areas need to cure. So then finally Quag. Again, we received a lot of community asks to add a Quag stewardship site. So that started with trialing a modified Flupsy that we're calling a restoration raft at the Post Lane Bridge. And it's just because the tide rips through there so quickly. We don't need a motor to grow spat on shell from the hatchery. We just put them in cages. Again, incredible growth there. And the first year we trialed that, those oysters were planted at Tiana. Last year, we grew them again, and we started a oyster reef site off of Quag Field Club in that little cove.
Is that the actual tidal Flupsies? Because I've seen them outproduce the regular Flupsy. Is it the one with the scoop?
It's literally just
Or is it
our
just
Flupsies.
flaps? Yeah.
It's just hanging baskets.
It's just hanging baskets of
spout
spout
on
The
shell.
ones with the scoops that upflow, like you can reverse them, where
Right.
you have it, you can make it a downweller, and then as
Yeah.
they get bigger, you can make it an upwell.
I'm
those
familiar
things,
with those, but honestly,
those things crank.
yeah. But this is very simple and it's proven
It
to
works.
Nature's
Yeah.
doing its
Nature's
job.
doing
Simpler is
it.
usually
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
Over-engineered.
Yeah. And then same thing, future plans, we're just hoping to, once I make sure our first planting is looking good, just do another planting, operate that restoration raft at the bridge again, and also add hard clams adjacent to that reef site to kind of really boot, again, at all these stewardship sites, we try not to just do a single species. We try to do this multi-species approach to the restoration that we're doing.
The site that you have in East Quogue, I guess it's the old Swans property, just south of that is where the trustees and the Baymen used to grow their clams. We used to have rafts there back in the 70s, and we have a sanctuary there now, or a permit for it. And that was the best place to grow clams anywhere in the town.
Is that someplace you would want us to
Yes.
seed clams
Well,
again as a sanctuary?
Well, it's a unique area because it's uncertified,
Right.
but it's all full of stumps there from cedar trees. It used to be an old forest, and when the bay became tidal with the inlet, it actually, there's old stumps there, so you could actually put your shellfish there, and then they would never get poached by anybody. I mean, yeah, it's a unique area.
So you're the dog leg of the old Swan property is where you're working currently?
Yeah, so the actual town, they acquired it through CPF,
Yeah,
I guess.
the dog
now it's
part,
part
where
of
their
it.
marina is,
part,
yeah, by the
yeah.
Yeah, it's really, that.
And that's been productive for you when in the summer heat it stays.
Yeah,
it
That's
stays-
why we
That's
want
what
to
we wanna
try it
try
this
it,
year.
yeah.
I'm not there
Because
yet.
I've heard like that place can be hit and miss.
Well, that's where
I know
a
we've had major failures there, and
But outside of
outside is
just
excellent.
by going outside of Weesick and right across from the town dock, that's where
Yeah.
we always grew our clams.
I just
and they're
don't put all your
phenomenal.
eggs in one
well,
basket.
that's
there.
where using a traditional Flupsy where you have that constant flow of water, you can
Even
get
then it
past
gets anoxic and hot,
Mhm.
especially if you have if you don't have a good high tide, low tide there. Because I know I've had clams planted up there, when it was owned by Swan's nephew. So just
Yeah, I
don't
think
put all
that's-
your eggs in one
No,
basket.
that's exactly
No,
why
it's-
we
yeah,
want to do a pilot level, see what
Honestly,
works, 'cause
what
if not doing the spat on shell, we know it's still
Right.
okay.
With the clams,
Yeah.
the reason we wanted to put this Flupsy here is, Mike's clam production has been amazing. Last year and even the year before, and it was killing me. Like, we only have the infrastructure for so many clams at our usual town production Flupsies in Mattatuck Creek.
Right.
it was killing me having to get rid of like the culling out so many. And you know, I was trying to seed them. They're teeny tiny. They're not going to survive. So I was like, oh, if I can get another Flupsy site, just have these like culls and give them a chance.
More for back to, again, the stewardship engagement,
Yeah, exactly.
Get people
Get people
involved,
to,
and
you
it's
know.
a low risk. It's not, Kate has her numbers she has to produce for the enhancement project and all
But
that. This
beyond
would
that,
be
it's just like
more of
bonus.
a-
Yeah,
you know?
hold the takes.
bonus
That'd
money
be good.
Too. Yeah. Who doesn't
The
want
more
more
the merrier.
clams? Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna find out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like they're gonna enhance what the Cornell has done there, with their shellfish restoration, the college and the Governor's Clean Water Task Force, because we've literally put tens, if not hundreds of millions of shellfish in that area.
Right in that area.
So, and we haven't, I think Chris Goebel wants to continue adding these shellfish on a yearly basis, so they, as they get out by age and die, they're gonna have, recruitments that, and he's found some areas that are very high recruitments from their seeding and projects up there. So it's been very, very, positive for the environment.
It's wonderful, yeah.
I think that fortification of that area is important, as like you said, as they age, because that's why we're having such a great harvest on the eastern side of the bay. And I think once you lose that equilibrium, you got an issue. And I think as those sanctuaries start to age out, that could be a problem. So the fact that you're talking about, a resurgence there, I think is timely. I think it's good.
Excellent. Yeah. However, we could combine efforts to make it all work. We're all on the same
What-
team here with the same goals.
Well, everything in the system's got to work.
Exactly.
Well, a lot of the oysters that we had gotten from you last year went to Tiana Bay, right, Chip?
Yeah.
So, that's a little further east and down further, but that's another area that's a sanctuary, so.
And I was out in the creeks the last couple days just kiting, and I was astounded at the improvement in the oyster set
Awesome.
in all of the Peconics.
Love that.
Whereas Shinnecock had been taking off, but I saw a set that I haven't seen in areas that, a lot. So hopefully Sag Harbor takes,
Yeah.
because that place could really use a set of something.
Yeah, I know, right?
Historically, the oysters set very well down there.
Yeah.
You going to show us some coordinates, or are you going to?
Yes, yeah. So just I could just fly through these. These are
Go ahead.
just nice visuals, so people, I talk about the hatchery and we talk about all this work. These are just kind of what is it that we're really doing here. I think I did just fly through this. This
Yeah.
is usually our like.
Okay,
Yeah,
you can explain it for the
Like, I don't
public's
know,
edification.
sure.
It's okay. Take a few minutes and explain it.
All right, so
Take care of
our
babies.
facility in Southold, that's where we produce literally all the shellfish. And we also host some groups that come in to learn from community to student groups. And again, all the shellfish that we seed from start to finish is produced by us. So from the algae that they need to eat, we bring in the adults. From the wild, we condition them, they spawn, we take care of their offspring until they're ready to be seeded. Hard clams, like we're talking about, get grown from hatchery to nursery, upwell or downweller to upweller to floating upweller, Flupsy, sieved all the while, and eventually seeded usually in October. They grow so much slower than oysters, so we try to give them as much time in that protected growing setting as possible. But with the back to the bays aspect, we try to again get people involved in the planting aspect. Do paddle implants. We have interns who we teach how to take subsets and do sample counts, and then extrapolate up to estimate how many we're planting, take measurements, etc., etc. Bay scallops, as I had said, our colleague Harrison, he has been operating the only bay scallop nursery in Shinnecock Bay, right? Is that what that's? And that's been proven successful for 3-4 years.
Yeah, I think this will be the 4th year.
Yeah, really taking the scallops from Mike's hatchery, growing them out in this nursery setting, really improving our scallop output, which is fantastic. Oyster reefs, that bigger picture actually is from the oyster reef that I started in Shelter Island, First Causeway, Cockles Harbor. It was absolutely barren I took a photo before we planted, absolutely barren, looked like a desert. This is 2 years after planting. That's what it looks like now. So you can see, I know it's hard to get excited about oysters. They look like rocks, but I get very excited. You can see some of them are just open, actively filtering. They're supporting multiple species of macroalgae. Really, this is the habitat we're looking to produce. You can see that is my small little set tank that I have at Dickerson Creek on Shelter Island. It's just 4 foot by 4 foot. That's exactly the setup that we're trying to look to put at Pine Neck. And with just a sump pump that pumps the water up and out and just constant flow. And then this is what I mean, that lower photo of me, Kim and myself, with our volunteers in the background deploying the thank you, Jamie. It's just a very simple technique, but they stay there, and you have control over the shape that you're producing. This is the restoration raft concept at Post Lane Bridge. Again, it's really just one of our Flepsies, just without a motor and just with hanging baskets. Go out, clean them, and then have our volunteers count and measure and help deploy them at the reef site. We've also been working on, and I guess I could say we have a major CPF proposal that we submitted earlier this year to Southampton Town to really further that educational aspect. So we're this rephraser concept of really further engaging with students in classrooms as well as community members, learning about the value of reefs and even having in classroom tanks. Actually, in my rundown, my overview, I forgot to talk about, we're very excited this year trialing seahorse hotels. Everyone's very excited. Having workshops for community members to construct stationary habitats for seahorses using repurposed gear that, honestly, I just scavenged from our facility at Southold that no one wants anymore. We could either throw it out or we could use it for habitat. We're receiving reports from our many oyster farmers in the area that they are finding seahorses in their cages. The problem is seahorses have site fidelity. They come back. So if this farm gear is constantly being moved and flipped and all this, then they don't know where to go, and then that's a major aspect of their reproduction cycle. They meet every day. If they get separated and their home is gone, then what, right? So the concept is creating these structures that will be stationary. We'll be monitoring them diving as well as with cameras, and we're really hoping to, see some success here. Everyone loves a seahorse. Eelgrass, the tortilla method, we're still utilizing. It's just an excellent way to get classrooms to make the tortillas. They now, some of them are established to do it on their own, and then they just pass the tortillas off to them just as like an activity that they need their students to do. And then in the fall, we do the weaving workshops. I might skip this one because I think we're taking a pause on the seed dispersal for permitting reasons. And then just, again, the smooth cord grass, that's the marsh grass. Same kind of concept, beach grass, the upland plantings, and now the meadow makers is a kind of sister to the rephrasers. Same thing, just really getting into the classrooms, creating curriculum for teachers to utilize and enhance their own class teaching. I feel like I'm taking a long time. No. This was this is just a quick, this was part of the proposal that we put together for utilizing the Pine Neck area. Just really quickly kind of shows where we're trying to operate.
So Parks had run power and electric. So
yep, and they had the ramp that they already were prepared to install again for us. This is kind of our vision here. Oh, the marsh raft, that would be taking the marsh grasses from the meadow makers workshops, and then they would be improving water quality as they're growing, and then we can use them at our restoration sites.
That'll help the dead end creek too, just creating
exactly.
flow. Yeah.
Shell recycling, community collection bins, shell recycling site, potential greenhouse. Okay, this is the big one. So the green square, that is the original 5-acre sanctuary that you guys had designated. And then the purple kind of dog leg is what we're asking you to consider as an expansion.
Do you understand that the FIMS project, they're going to fill in this whole area? And personally, as a fisherman, bayman, I think it's a bad idea. And it's going to be a loss of habitat for the horseshoe crabs. I mean, it's going to be, you're going to decimate a whole, there's shiners that spawn up there, bait fish.
Yeah, we see so much
there's
wonderful productivity
yeah.
there.
And they're literally just going to cover up everything, and all the eelgrass plantings that we've done with you guys and for 2 decades plus could potentially just get covered up. So I know I'm working with my attorney, Joe Lombardo, over here, crafting a letter to the Army Corps of Engineers asking them to reconsider the project.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a really bad. I mean, you're going to lose that whole
All that
little
work
the
put in.
marina and everything, and
Just the SPAT program.
yeah,
We opposed this
swim
initially.
lessons.
We did oppose this
I was
initially.
at the meeting and I spoke against it, and I was like, everybody turned around and looked at me
It was
like,
off the table, now it's back on
Right,
the
it
table.
was
It's
off
been
the
hard
table,
to
right.
catch up
We
with,
opposed
so-
it. It seemed like it was off the table.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, they're talking
Well-
about it again.
well, I think there's some potential funding for coastal resiliency that's going to come to the town, and this whole area on the ocean side is pretty, bad area as far as erosion. But to save that and to ruin the whole bay side, I don't see, there's no net gain of it. It's a net loss of an environment. So I'm just letting you guys know that, I don't know if you want to have a conversation with Joe, because he's in the point of crafting a letter from our board.
What would you be using the dog, that small dog leg site?
Primarily for spat on shell plantings. It's easily accessible. It's like a pretty even depth.
Yeah, there's the hole
flat.
just to the other side of that. But so
Yes,
you were
you could actually
east
walk
of
out
that.
Yeah,
without falling in the
Where's
hole.
the Seahorse Hotels?
But
Where are they going?
that was a deposition
In the
site for the
eelgrass
that
area.
was a
Yeah, on the
deposition
edge of the
site for the
eelgrass
dredging in Cork Canal. So there's all new sand there.
Yeah.
You have a
I'd
you have
really
a
like us to get
beautiful
a firm
sandy
answer
beach,
before you get all
and it
this.
goes all the way out to the where your bigger square is there, where the eelgrass is.
I would have no problem granting that and then utilizing that to
I was gonna-
bolster the
I was
letter
gonna
to
say,
oppose it.
that could
Is what I would
strengthen
do.
your
I would
argument.
grant it, and then I would use it to strongly oppose the filling of that area because, listen, a lot of our success, all of our success at the trustees has been in the partnerships that we've had with folks like you, okay? And we have to foster that, and we have to keep that moving forward. And I think this is just another piece of that. And I think that, it's great, coastal resiliency. We want to get on board with everybody. Erosion's a big problem, not only in our town, but beyond. But I think there has to be common sense and balance here. And I think, we're making some excellent points, and you guys have done some excellent work. Same thing with Dr. Gobler and company, right?
Yes.
And the culmination and collaboration of everybody has been paying dividends to our community. We need to keep that moving forward. So I would have no issue. I mean, the board's got to deliberate.
We've all got to look at it and to discuss it a little bit further.
But I see, and it's just more reason why they need to reevaluate that process of what they were doing. Because I thought this was off the table.
Yeah,
And now it's back on.
We have a current, we're wrapping up an old CPF project, and that's what's been funding us to be able to do this work for so many consecutive years. And we're about to start a new project and then have that new one in there, and it's all to, again, be able to expand the work we're doing in the sanctuary. So if
And also
FIPS is
protect what
happening-
we've already done.
Could I, along these lines, because we have some projects that we're interested in. You and I the three of us have spoke a little bit concerning SAG. Have you gotten a firm answer from the DEC about planting in closed waters? Are we somewhere with that? Because
It's
there's
site by site. So
site by site
yeah,
now?
so the cove off of the Quag Field Club, that is closed, but they granted us permission to start a reef there. I think primarily because the tide does rip.
And they
out
prefer
there.
spat on shell. Like it's a very
Yes.
Spat on shell
Spat on-
and it to not be in state waters too. It
Right,
has to
that's
be in
another-
town waters.
that's-
So town closed waters, they're starting to
Well, there's
Site by
precedent
site.
now,
site by
yeah.
site.
Yeah.
I mean, because it would be beneficial, but because we have some projects that we're working on as a board. We're kind of like, we'd like to put it here, but we're not sure whether the DEC is allowing it yet.
Yeah, I mean, I've also worked on establishing a pretty solid rapport with my contacts there.
One of the problems that we had run into with working with the Governor's Clean Water Task Force, some of the other towns had all uncertified water, and they were putting all these clams in there. When they came to us, we didn't have the uncertified water to put the clams in, so we had to, work with our attorney in crafting the right words to have a sanctuary.
Right.
And then we brought the Bayman and all the other user groups, and that's why a large area of Western Shinnecock Bay is a sanctuary, and it's certified, but it's off limits to shellfish harvest.
I think that in general, DEC likes the sanctuary model, specifically for the back to the base stuff. Obviously, we do, enhancement projects and want to keep the populations there. But in terms of these marginal areas, they always seem to be more like they love the fact that we, worked with you guys and have an actual designated sanctuary. Being attacked by my name.
I wish I had hair for that thing to get
All right.
I think we're
This
good.
is
I mean,
good.
we'll
Yeah.
take a look at this and we'll, obviously we.
And other stuff that comes up, just keep firing it our way.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
you said, now that Kate is our established main
You know how to
contact, we'd
reach
love
me.
to come
Kate,
quarterly and just keep you updated.
GPS coordinates of the new stuff that you want to do.
Sure, yeah. Maybe Jamie
I could forward this
the whole
to,
thing to them. Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, that would be great.
I think we should make a resolution memorial if we're
After we discuss it.
after we discuss it, but we would to do it right to memorialize the old and the new if we accept it. So
Sure, yeah.
The old is expired, correct?
Yeah.
Yes,
All right, so we can
expired
make
at
it
the
all
end of
inclusive into one document then.
if we agree. Yep. Okay.
You gotta make sure that the length of these arrangements are long enough so that you can do everything you need to do. It takes a lot.
It was a 5-year agreement, I think, which was
Yeah.
great, and 5 years flew by.
The
Another 5 at least.
COVID screwed us all up with
Totally.
timing, right? It really gave us a warped concept of time because of that whole situation.
Trustee Marin will attest to these one-year CPF projects. They don't work. Something like a 3 or a 5-year project where you have funding set aside for multiple years, and then we don't have to go as projects come due and we get add to them. Yearly ones are.
It also gives you enough time to continue it with
Yes.
fluidity, so you have
Absolutely,
enough
yeah.
lead time to be, okay,
100%.
like this project is working, let's continue it.
That's
Yes.
how we were getting 10-year permits from DEC. We want these to be long-term receiving areas because that's where we see the most restoration.
Plus you're fundraising and you're, trying to get
So
the.
we want that stability to know that we're
Yeah.
fundraising this year for work we're going to do next
Right.
year. We need to know that we have a place for all this.
Right. The seahorses need a hotel.
Yes, they do.
We've got a big agenda coming up.
We've got a major
Yeah.
agenda. All right,
Thank you
so
very much.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you for your time.
Before I quickly go, can I just very quickly shift to the other role, see if there's any progress on the MOU on the town seating program? You don't have to have an answer, but we've been in a holding pattern for a little while. So if there's someone could, I'm
Are we
looking at
talking
each one, I'm like, I don't know.
You're looking for a contract?
Contract for this
But
year's
there's a,
seating.
there's a,
Oh.
there's a,
It's with contracts.
but there's,
Okay, so I should follow up with them maybe.
but there's
I
a
guess.
walk-on resolution here today for this, right?
I don't know.
That's
That's on
something
our
else.
Oh, you mean on the town side?
Yes, that was brought down this morning
Yeah.
from bids and contracts. So we are,
Oh,
she
So
is
it's right
working
here.
on it.
oh,
Right, so
fantastic.
there's-
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a walk-on, it must be getting close because there's a walk-on resolution here for us today.
Is that just for you to sign it?
It is.
Just
Okay.
happy to know
So
we're making
that'll be
progress,
next,
that's all.
and then we'll
Yeah.
get it over to you.
It doesn't get more
As far as
progressive than that.
bookkeeping goes, I don't like
This is-
rolling over what we owe you for last year and the year before.
Yeah.
It becomes very complicated.
Exactly.
So your people have to talk to our bookkeepers, and we have to have these.
You gotta get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, because it became a real, it became a real nightmare for us to get.
Yeah, backlogging
Same.
has caused a
But there's a
disaster.
walk-on resolution for me to sign an agreement
So she-
after it passes at the general session, so.
She's worked on it. She brought that down this morning.
Awesome. That's
Okay,
great.
so there's progress.
Great.
Yep.
Yay.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for the presentation.
Thank you
Yep.
very much, and all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank your staff as well.
I will.
Next is Sag Pond Monitoring Cornell Peconic Land Trust. Mr. Ron Paulson is in the house. Choose a section.
Maybe say, still use that.
Usually the applicants are over there and when we're working on projects with everybody, we're.
Yeah, this is, yeah, so thank you for allowing me to come in and give you an update on SAG saga. That's been,
SAG saga. SAG's got a lot of saga.
yeah, but there's some good news, so
That's good.
I just want to say I was a little bit overwhelmed by all these efforts I heard this morning. And I started in this field 40 years ago, and I was a Bayman, Great South Bay graduate. So, I died out in the 80s, and I went inland, started this career. So back then, they said ecology, people didn't even know what that meant. To see all this effort, young people, is really.
There's been a tremendous amount of effort and there's been a tremendous amount of success for our community from that effort. So you want to keep that momentum moving forward.
Yeah, so it's heartwarming to see all that energy. So I just wanted to give you an update on what we're doing and what we're planning for this year's monitoring effort. And we're going to put some data loggers out there, and we talked about where we could put those. And, there's some other aspects of it. I just want you to be aware of while we're out there doing our thing, that it's not, you're aware of all of this. So.
Well, I mean, SAG, especially since Trustee Maron's been here, we've had a very ambitious dredging project there, which has allowed the inlet to stay open much longer than it has in decades. So I think it's, it's going to be a good.
It'd be interesting to see the water quality data over this next term.
Yeah, so we need to coordinate a little better with you, just because we want to be out there when those cuts are open, like before, during, and after.
Okay.
Because we learn a lot about that cycling. And we have equipment that.
Well, it hasn't closed in about it'll be going on 8 weeks. So.
James, can we put him on an email chain or something?
Yeah, we can add him to the.
That way he gets the
notification
notifications.
team.
Up to you guys.
I would add him on, that way,
We don't have a notification.
but I'm just saying maybe we need to make one.
Potential opening.
Right.
Potential opening,
I'm
and
saying.
the closing part, that's kind of like nature based.
Yeah.
But I will. It has been interesting, the way we've kind of like changed the way I'm opening the cut a little bit. But the back, since we've drilled through that back flat, and we were able to get to it. Now it really has basically pulled a lot of that flat back out into the ocean. And SAG in particular, it's been really, so it's not only far back, but it's very wide now. So I think it'll help a lot as far as salinity in SAG. So I mean, and your data is kind of paramount, and as well as Chris's, but we don't have that real time. So
Yeah, so those loggers will help the three areas that we want to track the salinity, temperature, and level.
DO as well.
What?
Dissolved oxygen as well.
Can only do that spot, like when we're going to be out there every 2 weeks or a month to upload these loggers. We'll do other
DO
field
test
parameters then, so we'll be able to add, some other data to that. So again, this is largely funded through the Conic Land Trust and the SAG community. So this effort, this monitoring effort anyhow. And, they've been great, supportive, and then we've been using that to come to the town and to get some funding for some remedial, some permeably reactive barriers, and some other work that is going on in SAG. So I am part of ClearBase is a nonprofit now. So everything I do is under ClearBase, and it's a nonprofit. We join forces with other wetland specialists and other groups. We have an intern program. So it's kind of nice for me. It's a little different, and it gives us more outreach component of all this. Sorry about that. Is it the top one?
It's the
Side one, right?
side one, yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. So, just as an overview quickly, what, the group I'm with specialize in is, we're really looking at the groundwater discharge areas at the Sag Pond. But the unique thing about Sag Pond is it's very long and narrow, and it has more miles of shoreline per volume of water that the groundwater goes into. It's very shallow in most spots. And what that means is the groundwater has like a 4 or 5 times more input on water quality than other wider bodies or ponds. And, the western side in particular, and I'll show you, is really a very strong groundwater input area. But basically, the submarine groundwater discharge, focuses near shore most of the time. The groundwater from inland all vents offshore somewhere on Long Island, feeds rivers and bays and estuaries, even some goes to the ocean. And what we focus on is on that advective zone, where you can see, and this was in Hampton Bays, where we did a PRB behind the bulkhead, that area. And you don't see that macroalgae anymore where the PRB is. So it's interesting that it's visual evidence that that project is still very successful. But that's the strong groundwater area, and then you move offshore 20, 30 feet in those areas, it becomes mixed, and the groundwater signal dies out. And in the tidal area, it gets mixed too, because the tide comes in, salt water seeps in a little bit, it mixes with the groundwater. But that advective zone is really where all the groundwater and whatever's in the groundwater is getting into these shoreline areas. And you've often seen these little riverets. Those are the areas that are really strong groundwater discharge that are focal points. It's not all the same along the shoreline. And we target those areas where these focal points happen for the hydraulics, and the geology often dictate where these focal points are, and knowing where they are helps us to better treat and come up with plans for treating those areas. You've also probably been in the water near shore where all of a sudden it's real cold. It's like the water's 80 degrees, we just went through 60 degree, which is about what groundwater 55 to 60 is temperature-wise. This is just a cross-section of that. It just shows everything inland is going to wind up in a surface water. The groundwater on Long Island all will find its way to a shoreline somewhere. And even the deep Magothy aquifer, the mainland, goes out into the Atlantic Ocean. There's an interface out there, up west, not so much here. So that's just a common feature that is a reality for us. Quickly, through the last 25 years, we've developed different ways to measure that and to map it. You really can't do much until you map out those zones. So we have probes that help us do that, and then we have an ultrasonic seepage meter it's a funnel that goes into the bottom that goes through an ultrasonic flow tube and actually measures the rate of discharge. So if you know what's in the water, you know the rate, you can detect how many pounds of some contaminant are going venting per year. So that's the power of those tools. You can actually put a number on what's being put in there. And we've done that in a lot of areas of SAG. We have shorelines there at 1,000 pounds of nitrogen a year for a 100 and something foot piece of shoreline. That's a focal point. Those are the areas we need to focus everything on. Septic, the inland control of fertilizer better. And recently, we've been working in Hog Creek to do wetland restoration that incorporates an enhancement with carbon that can allow for denitrification with the wetland restoration. And, so that's a project, Hog Creek, that we got funded, and we're hopeful that that goes well. But anyhow, these are just the tools. The probe is on the upper left, and the meters. There's various types of those meters. We've used this throughout the U.S. I was involved with the Navy and EPA for years, developing these things, and now fortunate left that world, but I was able to take some of the equipment with me that I've been using here. So what I was saying about SAG, and that's where all those little blue dots are, were 2021 and 22, we did 160 sites, pore water sites in the bottom to map out what was going on there as far as groundwater inputs. And you can see the shaded white area is the watershed. And you can see on the west side how big that watershed is and how much groundwater is pushing towards that west side in particular. It's on the east side too. But that plays a big role in what we're seeing on the west side. And that's the reason why is you have that capture area. So all those land uses within that area are mixing with the groundwater, and that groundwater is venting eventually into Sag Pond. This is a modeling effort. Those blue lines are the height of groundwater contours above sea level. So like each little blue line is like 1/10 of a foot above sea level. And so as you move inland, you might have 3 feet of groundwater head. That's why the groundwater moves to the shoreline, because the groundwater is at 0. So it's just, and the tighter those lines and the more focused they are, the more groundwater is venting, and that's why the western side is like lit up blue shoreline. The groundwater is really focusing there. And not so much on the southern area, and I'll talk about that later. The bulb at the bottom is actually not a groundwater discharge area. Groundwater, the pond water actually recharges on that most southern border and goes out under the dunes into the ocean. So that's a feature we've been able to map. And so those areas are not so much a priority. There's a hinge point where it changes from groundwater discharge to recharge. We know where that is now, so it's been helpful through the years. So that was, the initial survey was 2001 and 2, and then in 2023, we started to focus. We focused on that western shoreline. And at the same time, we said, we really should have like long-term stations set up so that we can start to track the improvements or the changes. And so that was the first year that we did like 40 offshore stations, 10 surface waters, and about 10 or so of the seepage measurement stations. And we've been repeating that, and we're going to repeat that this year. With a little more focus around when the cut is open, and twice a year during the high flow. The spring, the groundwater is highest, and then towards early winter when it's lowest, we get a picture of water quality at 2 different seasons. So just quickly, 23. Again, I kind of went over this. We established it, the priority areas, and we also were able to figure out where these discharge areas are, recharge are. So that was the beginning of that. So the map to the left is a plot of the original survey in 2021. And the more orange or red the dots are, those are the areas where the nitrogen in the groundwater and the pore water is highest. So you could see it. A lot of it is focused on the western side, but there are areas on the northeastern side, that are also high. And we do have one application through Cornell, farm just north of the bridge on the east side. We put in a reactor barrier there. And that's slowly moving along. Some regulatory issues there. And then on the east side too, about halfway up, one property owners allowed us to do some research to further enhance, to enhance these PRBs. And we can drill them in now with augers. instead of trenching or anything. So Cornell's more or less leading that. Dr. Molly Graffin is taking over that world. So I'm sure she'd, at some point, you'd want to hear of her updates on her research too. The plot to the right is the western shoreline. And you can see we focus, the orange dots really focus in two areas there. That doesn't work on that, but just north of the bridge on the western side. And then also up further, you'll see another row of orange dots on the left, on the upper region. Those 1,000-foot strips are what I was talking about, were about 1,000 pounds of nitrogen over that area coming in. And a lot of the areas in between those two orange areas are not so bad. So there's not as much need to really, it's still important to keep upgrading septics and doing all those things, but there are these focal priority areas that really need more focus and attention. Now that we know where they are, we can look inland to hopefully do other things, or maybe PRBs, or in one area, I think a wetland enhancement would be a good idea. So just a little more detail on that. So the dark red and orange were the two areas, and the nitrogen is over 10 milligrams per liter, which drinking water standard's 10. And it's almost like 16 or 18, very high, too high. And so these are areas that, because like I said earlier, it's a narrow pond up there. So that groundwater has huge effect on the water quality. And so those are areas, the one to the north area, yeah, that one. There is some effort to put a PRB back by that farm. So they've done some test wells, and they're probably going to look to, and it's not just the ag, because the ag is part of it, but it's also the high residential, the golf courses up there. So you can't just pick out one group. We're not, it all mixes at the shoreline, so you can't really say everybody has a part.
Doesn't it actually just funnel down? That's the whole concept. That's why you have the monitors, and it funnels down to specific areas along the shoreline. And you figure out where the groundwater comes in. That's why you put your test wells there.
Yeah, exactly. We know now where these focal points are. So the groundwater is coming up, and it's also focusing horizontally to certain areas, because there might have been an old river. I would suspect
There's definitely
these
an
were
old
all river
there.
channels back
No, there is,
2,000 years ago, and the groundwater's doing what it's been doing.
There's definitely an old river, because when we opened up that cut this past time, I hit the river stone. I hit the black flat river stone, and it actually came out on the beach. So you know that this was an old stream bed.
It had branches.
Yeah,
That's why these little areas are so focused.
Little fingers.
So it's, groundwater is doing what it's doing for 1,000 years.
Right, regardless.
But we're just trying, we're just coming along figuring it out. So that was the 203 effort. South of the bridge, on the west side, there is an area all the way to the south, right about there. But the recent data, not from here, showed some high levels, but we found even higher levels in 204. So that's another area that needs some other, look. You see the two yellow triangles there?
Yeah.
Those are what we call the hinge point. That's where the groundwater discharge stops, via discharge. And it's either nulled out to like just too weak to have much impact, or if you go all the way to the south, down where the scale is, along the ocean beach, that area is actually recharging potable. We put meters in, and we're going to do more focus work there to learn how much water is actually. So even when it's closed, there's a circulation. There's water coming in. There's a couple little tribs up north that are constantly feeding, and that water has to be, at some point it equalizes, as much as it can. So that pond height is pushing the water out and under the dune. and they'll get caught up in, offshore deals. So that's a cool little feature. And so not everywhere is the same on these shorelines, not all the same remedies are as important as certain areas are. And again, it's just a kind of a repeat of priority areas. So the one priority area number 2 there, we actually had one of these seepage meters out. The funnel is to the green thing to the right. And you can see how rocky that shoreline is. And that whole cove is really active. And that's one of the areas where, because of the high flow and high nitrogen, we're seeing a very high discharge up to 1,000 pounds coming out there. So this slide, I don't know, James, the one on the right is actually a little movie. If you go down. Somewhere there, does it come up? Oh. It was linked. So the main thing is that one to the right, the discharge hose from coming out of the flow meter. It's hard to see, but it looks like a garden hose. I mean, the water is literally coming out, and that's water being captured by a 2x2 funnel. There's about 200 funnels worth of shoreline active like that. So it'd be like having 200 hoses bleeding at the shoreline. That's how much water, groundwater, fresh groundwater is going in. And that groundwater in that area is over 10 milligrams per liter. So just liquid fertilizer,
And that's why we have a blue-green algae issue in that pond when it's closed.
That's just, loading the gun, so to speak, So that was really cool. That's why we want to know, if we can, when it's open, because we can get better measurements to see how the pond reacts, when these things are open, and better understand this relationship between that and the groundwater, inputs. So again, like you said, the openings are much bigger, wider, and stronger, it seems, than they were, which is fine. But we just want to understand that better.
Okay.
It's just showing you that after the cut, the groundwater discharge in a volume went from like 100 mLs a minute coming out of that hose to 1.5 liters a minute coming out of that hose. That's, so it just shows you, it's just physics that the pond drops, it's easier for the groundwater to get out. And then it'll re-equalize, and there'll be whatever the pond level is, it's fighting towards getting the balance back. And we just want to understand that a little better. So again, the big thing about the conclusion that we found those 2 or 3 really high areas. The other interesting thing about the surface water was in general, it's over 2 milligrams per liter in the surface water, total nitrogen. It's supposed to be less than 0.4 to be within what they would consider healthy or a target. So the other part of that is during the summer months, it's more organic in nature. It's organic nitrogen. And over the winter, when the algae stops and dies off, it becomes inorganic, which is nitrate. So the species change. If you go organic, in the summer makes sense. It's taking up the inorganic nitrogen and making organic nitrogen. And then that dies off and it goes back to mostly just the nitrate, inorganic form. But the total nitrogen of all the species is still 2. So it doesn't matter, it's still there, it's just what, and we didn't exactly realize that shift was going on either. So it doesn't, it just shows you all these different mechanisms are at play. So that brought us to 204, which we repeated
same 40 stations, the same surface water, and also discharge measurements. And a lot of the results were the same. You know, the priority areas showed up again, so we were able to reproduce it.
Consistently.
And it shows you the technique works well, and also these are real focal points, not just one-time graphs. This is the surface water results I talked about. It's a little hard to read, but the upper reaches are all over 2, up to like 2.7 milligrams. And as you get down by the southern bulb area, it drops to like 1.7.
This is an aggregate number annual for the
That's
annual.
total.
Yeah, okay.
So you know, there is some dilution as you go down to the bulb area. It's wider, groundwater gets diluted out a little bit. And you see lower levels, but again, it's supposed to be 0.4 or less. So we got a ways to go to get that down to at least start to see a trend, which we hope to in septics, to people being more conscious of fertilizer use, PRBs, wetland enhancements, buffers being restored. All those things are going to be necessary. And that kind of brings us to where we are. This year, we want from that we wanted to do the data loggers in 3 areas of the pond. And, you know, we want to put one by the bridge, and you know, and also be able to be out there when they open and close. You know, the cut. So it's a little more focused and a little more. And a lot of this is helping people who do modeling to really understand how to make the models better. Goblers and Cornell and CDM in the county. So we're able to give them new data that they didn't have previously. A lot of assumptions were made, but now we have actual measurements.
Proving it out consistently, so make better decisions that
So,
way.
being that how long have you been doing this on SAG for? Like,
It's 5 years.
5 years.
You know, doing these kind of monitorings.
Yeah, I know there was some word about maybe doing something like this in Mecox, but Mecox is a much bigger watershed and it has a little bit different dynamic, a lot different dynamics than, you know, SAG, because normally the salinity is higher and the shellfish in there. So, you know, it's a unique opportunity to take what you have developed here and use a template on that Mecox.
We did do Georgica, which is bigger. And really what we found is you got to do it trip by trip, because Mecox has a lot of trips too.
Yeah.
And that's really where the groundwater is going to focus. These other broader areas, there is some. So you can take on a bigger watershed. You just, what we found in Georgica, we did a lot in Eel Cove, which is probably the worst cove. That's the worst trip I've seen so far. 20, 30 milligrams per liter.
Wow.
Coming in there. And
So as far as the monitors that you wanted to do on the trustee bottom, you know, of course, the whole board has to agree to it, but is there a timeline of when you're going to remove those, or are they in year round?
No, we'll move them out in probably December.
Okay.
They're all semi-permanent. Some might be on a screw anchor that's strapped to that, and then that will come out. The one by the bridge, down by that north side, I don't know, James, there was that other pictures. But
it's on the north side of the Sag Bridge.
There's like a wooden bulkhead there. I don't know why.
That was the old bridge.
Yeah, that was, so it can be strapped to that. And we want to level them in to sea level, because that will help. They're doing water levels in the ground, and if we know, you know, if we level them in to datum, then we'll be able to see that relationship. So they have to be somewhat permanent, but we want to be able to take them out. The loggers are like $2,000 a piece. So we don't want to.
We got to wrap this up because we have a big agenda and we have a general at 1 o'clock. So
yeah, so that was the area that we're just asking for permission to put it in, and we'd like to put our little skiff back in the mooring there that it was. was south of the bridge in that corner. We put an application in. So those were the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll all go through for you.
Yeah, sure will.
Thanks for the update.
Appreciate the update and.
Thank you.
Okay, so now let's get to the general permit applications for determination. We've got the Conway Irrevocable Trust, which is the Village of Quogue. Where's Regina?
Hi, how are you?
Okay,
I'll try to be quick. So it's 113, 111. The two properties are actually technically separate, but they're conjoined. So I have to separate it to two different applications. So I also separated it to the segregated frontage versus anything else. So those are the numbers you see. So the main part of the parcel is 111, owned by Summerwind LLC. And that is 188 frontage. And then there's a little tiny piece that's 9 over by where the marsh is, and that is the 113. So even though they're two different applications, it's still the same project. I also proposed a Cape American beach grass buffer as required. And as well, I installed a silt curtain to protect that small area of intertidal marsh over on the east side.
I would say one thing that you're gonna have to do is just to avoid confusion is to make sure your cover sheet synchronizes with your plans, because the plans are saying this up to 18 higher on them, and then the cover sheet is saying 10. Right, so just to avoid confusion later on downstream here, perhaps.
In the description, I also put existing elevation and the average is 3.23 because wood bulkhead, it kind of like up and down and up and down. So the average is 323 and the elevation proposed is 3.3. So
I'm just
that's where
talking.
the 10 inches came from.
Right, I get that,
But some other areas are lower. That's why I put that
Right.
up to 18 inches. It's like
That's
there's
what
one section is 3.16.
Right, but I think, yeah, I see what you're saying. James, I'm just trying to avoid confusion at the time of,
I could just put to match owner to
what are
the
your
west.
thoughts?
That's up to you guys. I mean, it's either 10 inches or it's 18 inches.
Well, so the DEC allows up to 18 inches. That's why we specify up to 18 inches as allowed by other agencies. It pretty much covers up to 18 inches if necessary.
So you're saying
But it's
that
really
the
10-ish.
neighbor, so you're saying 10 inches on the neighborly end,
Correct.
but there might be a section in the middle that needs to
Correct.
go up 18 inches, but it's the same height.
Yeah, but when we do the vinyl, it's all one height,
Not one height now.
So there's one tiny section is 3.16. So that's why.
Well,
One section is more than 10 inches.
So you're asking to have a consistent grade, whereas the
Correct.
existing bulkhead is not a consistent grade.
That's correct.
And that consistent grade is going to be equal to the neighbor's height,
Correct.
correct? So it varies between, on the replacement, 18 inches to 10 inches.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's why I put that in the description.
Do it, yeah, I mean, based on elevation,
Right.
and that's why it's this increase in height gets a little,
I know,
funny,
that's
you
why,
know, like it's
well, that's
like-
why I'm saying I would like to clear up any confusion going into this.
that's clearing a lot of it up, but,
So I
yeah.
put a very detailed description as
Right,
to.
so basically what, I think the important part is you're gonna have a match to that one property. So you're not gonna see 8 inches beyond that. So as long as the wording is good,
It says to match bulkhead to the west.
okay. Good with that?
So that's
You may
the
wanna use
benchmark
language to
height
ensure
for the whole
uniformity.
project, and the project as it, or the bulkhead as it is now, it's low.
Right.
So you're looking to have the whole project the same height.
Obviously, yeah.
do we have,
Ensure uniformity, so I would use that kind of a phraseology.
So you're gonna craft that into the,
We would have to, yeah.
and then also the actual like buffer zone, do you have that in the plans and like the 12 inch
It
space?
says right there, the 10-foot Cape American beach grass
Yeah.
buffer.
But that would be
I
matching the
have the
neighbor's
limits of
property.
disturbance and fill, I have the beach grass buffer, I have the silt curtain to install prior to commencement, to protect that small area of poor grass.
Again, this.
I'll see the wood
Some of this
walkway.
bulkhead is.
So the
I get it,
wooden
it's just- I
walkway
just wanna
is
make sure
behind
it's
the
clear.
boat-
It's 8
boat
inches
slip.
lower than, yeah.
Make sure it's
Understand.
clear at the end of the day.
It's only around the boat slip. And you guys know, the jurisdiction is not in the boat slip, so.
I mean, our jurisdictions.
No, we take in the jurisdiction. If we're permitting the boat slip, if we're permitting the boat slip, did we permit the boat slip? And did we create that wetland coming in?
So, Village of Quogue, their code specifies that Southampton Trustees has jurisdiction along the frontage of the Quogue Canal. So historically, I've always gone for the board to separate country from state pretty much and spec out the frontage for you guys. And that's how it's always been charged in the past, because technically the boat slip, as per village code, isn't in your jurisdiction. So I just specified.
But if they're coming to us for a permit, they're voluntarily putting it in our jurisdiction, it sounds to me.
Yeah, but
That's true. That's also true, is that the village boundaries
Village code
generally end at the high
ends at
water
the
mark.
high water.
Right. and
Take
we're-
over from
but we're-
high water seaward.
Correct, then we're creating a new high water mark.
But
we also have the
that
frontage.
man-made boat slip, was it originally approved by the trustees?
I don't know.
Because sitting on this board for many years, I remember Eric Schultz saying that that was the recommendation of this board, is to allow these indented boat slips so that there'd be no boats tied up on the canal. So I would like to see maybe a little bit more research done on this, see if that was originally permitted by this board, that indented boat slip.
I'll foil it. I'm not sure
Please.
if you guys will have
Well,
the
I
records.
know the
but-
history of a lot of these, I mean, boathouses and boat slips were permitted by the trustees. It was
I'll
actually
see if there's
recommended
something. Yeah, I'll see.
by our board.
All right, so, what do you
We'll
want?
foil for that one.
So you put it on hold till you
Yeah,
get
I'd
your
like-
research done.
I'd like to get the history.
Okay.
So let's go to your next one.
Well, they're both kind of the
Okay, so
same.
then that's that. What else do you have on here for
That's
us? All right.
Okay, thanks.
right. So now we have the owner representing Michelangelo Ferrari. Irrevocable.
Put it on hold.
Revoked.
James,
Let's hold it.
Not
Use
the-
time anyway.
what was that?
Nobody here?
I'm not the representative.
No, I know that.
Give it a try.
Let's put it on
See,
hold.
install landward of existing timber navy bulkhead. 75 feet of sheet piles flush with existing timber sheets. Yeah, this is gonna go on hold.
Yeah, put it on hold.
He got the email, so I'm not sure where he is.
Let's see where he's at. So let's go to shoreline bulkheading for Robert Tannhauser at 12 Sun Court, right?
Yep.
Hello.
Morning, trustees.
The application is to rip out and replace 115 feet of navy wall bulkhead, rise 6 inches in elevation. I know that's to match the neighbors. Height, rip out and replace 1 20-foot southern return and 1 6-foot northern return. Install an 8 by 10 by 6 high step-down box. Now,
Yes, it's like a recessed stairs, and I sent the updated drawings to James.
This is what we
And Sean.
discussed last time. That was
Yes.
like,
Yep.
more
So,
explanation.
The buffer was
so
the,
now,
Better
right, the
cross-section.
buffer and the stairs were two issues.
Yes.
So if you want to tackle the step down, the
Do
recessed
the
stair.
easy one with the buffer first.
Okay, that's the easy one?
Yeah, the buffer is the easiest.
Okay,
What did
so
you come
he still wants to pursue with a sand buffer. He will never plant grass. He's very environmentally conscious. He doesn't put any chemicals on his lawn as it is now. Also, he wants to state that he did want to have that system installed, the PRB system.
Yes, which,
So he's not looking, he feels that he just wants to have the sand for now. I know you were waiting on a rebuttal. He wrote another note just in case you needed to speak with him.
yeah, I mean.
But it was just the fact that he also said sometimes people walk on the property because there has to be an allowable.
Pass and repass.
Right, so his understanding was that he has to allow anyone to walk on the property within 10 feet. When the tide is high, this currently happens often. Planting non-vegetated grasses would be a barrier to egress as well. So
I mean,
that's-
I know it's something we can't make you do, but we recommend it. I mean,
I stated that.
I have pictures of that, this bulkhead has, been washed out and overtopped. I mean, we asked for him to do that, he's not, I know he's working with Cornell as the PRB, which is happening next door.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know, we can't make him plant stuff there, but
Listen,
recommendation.
If it's Blue Book compliant,
It's in the Blue Book, and
Yes.
I did bring your concerns and I expressed them to him
Yeah.
on the importance of the plantings. But he does come back with,
I mean, it's a valid point that people do use this as access and egress and mitigation of ticks,
and he says it's happening a lot on his property.
yeah.
No,
And
I
it seems like
Across
he's
the
kind of
shoreline.
open
Right.
to it.
I
Just
literally live
them.
right down the
Right.
block.
so
from
then
the same
that
property.
is the easy one. Next, let's talk about the step down box.
What's the status of the PRB,
What's the status of it?
Yeah.
It's still not approved. I mean, he has a whole, if you want to keep this for your files, he had given this to me
What?
that they had done a,
I'm just
What,
interested
PRB?
in.
No.
one in the area that's around the area from him.
Just let him have the sand. I
A
mean,
pilot, if you want to
people
keep
do
this
walk there.
and stamp it in for yourselves.
It's fine.
give that some,
I think that's a good point.
What do we got on the step
So
down?
the step down
Let's
box.
see your engineering.
I did have the plans adjusted, but my licensed architect is not here, so he did place it on the cross section for you.
Let's see that.
And I do have a photo in my phone if you need to see.
Let's look at this cross section first.
I think it's on the last page down.
Flooring wall? This one.
There you go. So it's basically like a cut, so the bulkhead would be cut in, kind of like a boat base, and then the stair treads would be recessed within it. So it's still bulkheaded, it's still protecting the property.
and it doesn't
And-
interfere with pass and repass at low tide, so it's
That's
actually.
why the cantilever, he really didn't want to extend out and down, so that's why we really wanted to keep that more open.
And this has been, well, I mean, that's also stopping access and egress within a 10-foot of the outside of the bulkhead.
Yes. So it creates, it
It
doesn't
creates
cause
an
an
impasse.
obstruction.
Right. If people are walking on the property to walk across,
Yeah.
like, they're basically gonna have to
Walk
Well,
They
around.
gotta go 10
walk
feet.
around, they're gonna have to go 10 feet onto his property even further. I mean, does he
Well,
realize
or
he's
they could
asking
just
for
step
that?
on a tread and walk across. no?
Yeah.
Right, it's within the bulk, I mean, it's,
You can step on a tread because it's
Yeah.
how many steps going
Well,
down?
I mean, if you put the stairs in front of the bulkhead at a medium tide there, you're gonna have, it's gonna interfere with public. Actually, it's a good way, because if they can walk up these steps, walk down the bulkhead, and then, walk back and forth.
Is this
You don't need
approved by the Army Corps and State? Is this an issue that
I don't think it's
No,
an
I
issue
don't
at
think
all.
it's an issue,
I think
because
this is,
this gets in our?
Well, you got steps there. How many treads are there coming up?
it shows about six,
So if somebody-
shows about 8, but,
Instead of climbing up a bulkhead, you could just walk up the steps.
right.
Well, right now, there's a pool ladder, so if you're walking there and the tide's somewhat high, you have to climb up the pool ladder. This would actually allow the
Easier.
public to walk up or walk down, or him to walk up. And it's behind the pier of the bulkhead, so it doesn't interfere with the beach in front of
It's
it.
think it's
probably
all-
not gonna get wiped
I
out.
think it's all. I think it's all fine.
I think it's fine.
It's fine.
I think it's fine.
I think it's a good, I think it's gonna be a good
It's easier
project.
than I expressed the platform to him, but like he said, it's more, that's gonna obstruct more and
It is.
come, so he'd rather just keep the recessed stairway.
And on the northeaster there, with the tide being high, that platform could get washed away, which they have been known to do along that beach.
Will this sand be regular sand or olivine sand?
No, don't go there, Albans. Scott. Yeah,
I think I like the project.
okay. I think we've resolved the issues on this.
Yeah, we just need stamp plans for them.
Yes, I will send them to you. He just got back today, but
And as far as the 3 jetties, you can replace them because that's gonna stop the sand from,
yes, and they will,
Traveling down the
they're not
beach.
being
And-
raised like I
Well,
stated.
they're not being
They're the same.
increased.
well, because there is a,
Same as what's there.
there is a wetlands just south of that if those
That's
3
protecting the
jetties were
wetlands.
washed
Yeah.
or taken out, that sand would and the whole wetlands would go away there. It's the only grass that's between there and Carmel Point, so, yeah, we'll pull this ahead.
Okay,
Get
so
the
advance
stamp
that.
plans on, be all set.
That's all you have, right?
That is all I have.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
so the
Have
next
a
one.
wonderful Monday.
Thank you.
The next one that Secretary Treasurer Warner has is Michael Proyos at 14 Ocean View Drive, Shinnecock Hills, represented by Cole Environmental. Hello.
We're back.
Welcome back. Hello.
So we received comments that wanted the revetment pulled back onto the property, which was our original proposal, but then we were told to put it fully on.
Yeah, but I've done a site visit, I talked to James, and if we move it further ahead than the bulkhead,
Mhm.
it's gonna be like a promenade, it's gonna stick out,
Uh-huh.
and it's gonna cause more damage downdraft because there's 2 properties that aren't protected down there, so you basically, if you keep it in line with the peel line of the bulkhead that is currently there, I think it would be a better it's gonna be a better project environmentally.
Okay, so how does that play in to us only requiring trustees' approval? Or is that not a factor?
I mean, if you look at the survey you submitted, it shows Shinnecock Beach Road, and it also shows this 40-foot
Yeah, we've had
wide.
it updated since the buffer, I guess, or the covenant, like, is really only on his property.
So the trustees' property is 50 feet from mean high water.
Right.
For Shinnecock Beach Road.
Right.
So if you just look at this survey, whether it's correct or not, it shows a 40-foot wide non-disturbance buffer from mean high water in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So if you did 50 feet, it would be 10 feet from this line here, and the rocks that are currently there fall within that area. So I don't see how it wouldn't still fall within that 50 feet of.
So then are you saying that the road extends onto his property?
According to
It's our property.
yeah,
Our property, not his.
Okay,
You have
so,
If I may, Wayne Bruin, the trustees have a right-of-way, which is not ownership. It did originally get ownership to what was Shinnecock Beach Road, but Shinnecock Beach Road is essentially eroded in most places. In 1951, the subdivision was filed, and the boundaries are were the monumented boundaries of many, not only this map, but many maps, going all the way back to the Long Island Improvement Company, which was the map of Shinnecock Hills, among other things. So the issue here, which I got involved in the early months of this year, was the fact that the trustees were insisting that this be pushed onto his upland fee title. And his fee title, unfortunately, he had been in front of the Conservation Board back in 2003, and the Conservation Board imposed, as they normally do, a non-disturbance buffer on his property, his fee title, which was measured 40 feet from what was then the mean high water mark, but the buffer itself, the encumbrance, is only on his property, not on any portion below his title. And it was, this is the schedule attached to the covenant, so you can see that shaded area.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is if you push these improvements he is essentially prohibited from doing that unless the town conservation board were to waive that covenant.
Right, you'd have to.
And I thought that in the spring, when we talked about this, is the board agreed that if we moved this improvement essentially like 5 feet. Seaward about 5 feet, we would avoid having to go back to and even asking the conservation board to do something that they're not even obligated to do. They can just merely say, no, it's not a matter of being arbitrary or otherwise. It's a covenant. So to avoid that, we moved the project 5 feet outside, and we put together, which I had prepared, the normal beach replenishment document, which I reviewed with Joe, and it's since been executed, and that's the plans that are in front of you. So the question is it's been moved about 5 feet, and I know I talked to Ed, and there was a discussion of perhaps staking where this actually would be out there. I asked Kate to look at it. Is there anything else that could be done? She talked about possibly at least tapering this to the point where it's tapered at least equal to where that bulkhead is to the east. I don't know, whatever else Kate could talk about. But I think, unfortunately, if the board had decided this in January, there was absolutely no way, then perhaps we could have in the last 5 or 6 months approached the conservation board to see if there's any willingness to modify this covenant.
Yeah, we were trying
That's what we were trying to avoid.
Yes, I know.
So, all the other regulatory authorities, everybody else here?
Yeah, so we've amended it based on DEC's comments. They gave us exactly what they wanted.
Size of the rocks, there's a
Yeah.
few recommendations.
Mhm.
But I guess with the beach nourishment covenant, that will assure that we have the ability, or the board has the ability to make sure that there's a beach there and it's not going to disappear because of this project. I mean, it shouldn't, because a rock revetment will do less damage than a vertical bulkhead.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, the good thing here, as compared to other places further to the west where there's very little beach, you have
there is no beach. Yeah.
You have some beach here, and this plan is the rocks will be installed. This is something that will interact with storm tides, high, unusual tides, perhaps. The rocks will be covered for the most
So
part.
at this current placement, Ed, you're comfortable with this current?
Well, I'd be comfortable as long as the sand nourishment agreement
Re-nourishment agreement is
Which you have in place.
part of it, which we have in place.
We have that in place.
I
And
mean,
the current placement is
submit
gonna
this agreement.
satisfy
Based
the,
on the understanding that we had earlier
We
in
don't
the
have
year.
a DEC permit at the moment, but they gave us initial comments based on the plan, and we just made.
and this is gonna keep you out of the crosshairs of the
Yes.
environmental review board?
If it's,
If
on
this
the
is
road.
all accepted as is.
Mhm.
So we've got the sand renourishment project that we're happy with.
Yeah.
Ed's happy with the location of the current structure.
I mean, it's
What else are you gonna do?
it's
And
going to
you're
work
out of the
out.
crosshairs of the town.
I mean, it's
Okay.
you have a very fine area to work in.
Let's just go with it.
Yeah.
Let's see what the DEC says.
Yeah, I don't expect them to have additional comments.
But when you have the DEC approval, you can come back to us and we can sign, seal, and deliver this thing.
Yeah.
You guys
Can
get
you
started.
fire
What do you
two
think about that,
two
Wayne?
stakes in down there,
Yeah.
markers,
Sure.
and let me know when they're there so I can go down there and physically view where it's
Sure.
going to lay out on the beach.
No problem.
And Kate, if you could look at what you were suggesting, if that is an issue after you review with Ed, if there's something you could do to taper
Yeah.
ends
Yeah, or like,
something.
even angle, so it's like a
Well,
softer
the beach
edge.
is angled there. It's his property and the beach. So,
Yeah.
So maybe we could craft the rocks to be similar to where the angle of the beach. Well, let's see put the stakes there, and I'll go down and look at it. Okay.
Yeah, I think the location of the project itself, with the way the beach is configured and everything, we're not looking at a precedent if we give a little bit of relief.
No.
So I'll submit this to the record. It is the original, so I hope it doesn't get lost.
No, give it to me. I'll shepherd it through. I'll shepherd it through the records process.
Yeah. We don't want to lose any paperwork, please.
Especially since it's the original.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm doing.
Michael's not going anywhere. We'll make
Aren't you tired of looking at me?
No, I just want to make a good project the best we can. So protects your property and protects the
Yes.
rights of the residents to pass and repass.
Got so many things to contend with, this board, that board, this authority, that authority.
It is chaotic.
Very chaotic.
We holding this or?
Holding is pending, pending DEC approval.
Yeah.
And the stakes are,
Thank you.
you're gonna
Yep.
notify us
Yep.
about the stakes. so-
Yeah, we do. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Great. I'll
Thank
see
you.
you guys at 1. Or are we starting at 1?
One.
Okay.
Yeah, we start at 1. Okay,
Take care.
we'll see you. So you have now, First Coastal, I see Mr. Billy Mack is here for Jody Delafamina and John
It's an official document.
Kim.
Okay. I'll keep it in the file.
Stamp it in, right, please?
Hello,
Mr. Billy Mack.
nice to see you guys.
Stamp it in, put it in the folder.
Monday, I like your new schedule at 10:30. Hopefully it works for everybody.
Traffic was,
Yeah.
it was not sitting in traffic so badly. It was
You were
beautiful.
here at 9:30 or earlier, so that's not so bad. But
This
it's bad for most.
is way better.
So the first one we have up is 40 Noyak Harbor Road, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Billy Mack, First Coastal, for the applicant. This is a very simple dock into Noyak Harbor. Fortunately, they've got lots of water there. I remember we did a little dredging project there about 4 years ago. And this is, it's a great, to me, it's a great project because the dock is very tight to the property because they've got a lot of deep water there. And it's a simple design.
It seems like you ticked all the boxes. Let's
Yeah.
not like drag this one out.
No,
It's
it's-
centered on the
yeah,
property.
exactly.
You have the depth. It's 6
Yeah,
foot.
that's what I
by
was gonna
20
say.
foot, like the railing deal. Where are we at with the railings? I didn't even look at that part. We're good. We've got one top rail.
We got a top rail.
Is that on both sides or one side?
I think we're showing it on both sides, but if you guys want it on just one, I don't think they'd be opposed.
There's a lot of bulrushes and such in the way here anyway, where it's probably not going to be much of a visual issue, and it is kind of away from other property owners. Where are you guys at with the rail? That would be the only thing I'd tackle on this.
Regulations say it needs to be 2.5 feet on the inside of the float. It shows at 2.2. In the past, you guys have allowed it chalked, if it's that, so.
Talking about.
It's up to you guys.
Well,
Just bring it in your
Yeah,
attention.
no, I appreciate that.
The regulations show 2.5 feet
point.
on the inside of the
Bless you.
float.
Bless you.
On the hydro survey, it says 2.2.
Yeah, we tried to keep it as tight as possible, but if you want us to move that out another 3 to 5 feet to get that extra 2.5 feet, I'm fine with that.
I'd let it run.
I mean, honestly, it's
We're
another.
kinda cutting hairs here.
I know, I think it's too small to.
Here's our regulations.
No, I get that. I just,
Chalk it and call it a day. There's no submerged aquatic vegetation there.
But then he's got to go to 4 poles if it's chalk.
I'm happy to push it out 3 feet.
Well, then you would,
What-
3 feet, it's not gonna interfere with navigation.
It's not going to, if you interfere with navigation and if it makes everything go smoother
Well,
without chalking, because I'm not a huge fan of chalking on the.
Whoa,
yeah.
hold on.
Yeah.
But then you gotta re-amend your permits with everybody else then, right? So what are we creating now for this?
Okay, good point.
I mean, what are we creating?
I'm
now?
happy with what it is
I'm
without chalking.
fine with what it is too.
They're in no rush to get this dock right away, so if it means us modifying the DEC permit for another 3 feet, I'm fine with that too.
I don't have it, you know.
Yeah, but it's gonna become much more of a functional dock. The way it is right now,
It's going to be leaning up on the
it's gonna,
dropout
on low
tides.
tide, it's gonna be like this. It's gonna be sitting on the bottom. We move it
Is
out
it?
3 feet.
Yeah.
We're at 2 feet instead of 2.5 feet at low tide. So
You're at-
I don't think it's going to be sitting on the bottom, but
Yeah, I think, what are we really talking about here?
Our Blue Book compliant regulations.
Yeah, I think move it
in
out.
one hand, half a dozen in the other.
I'm happy to push it
But
out.
you're,
It's fine. It's fine. We'll go out.
I've spent time down there fishing and climbing. It should be moved out a little bit because
Okay.
I would hitch it out for your homeowner's sake.
a winter low tide, that thing is gonna be sitting right on the dry bar.
That's
I'd
very
rather have
easy.
two poles
There's
than
no
four poles than shots.
impedance on the
Inches.
navigation, so
I know.
easy enough.
Pending,
You are here for something else.
we have any, we have any.
Two something else's, right? Yeah, if you want to keep moving down what we have here.
121.
New application, we have any.
Yeah, Joe's.
40's on hold.
40's on hold.
121 Lee Avenue.
Yes, that is a, so this is the end of a creek, Southampton Village, 121 Lee Avenue. There's an existing walkway and stairs that lead to the high water. We're just looking to get to low water. Very simple extension of an existing walkway.
Is it permitted existing?
I mean, it's in the village.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. You know, there's one out there at the end of the creek that I will not make a comment on. But this is
Whose fault is it? Is it your fault or whose fault?
it's one of the neighbors 2 properties away.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah. So it's been there forever. I looked at it in aerial photos, but this is a very simple staircase along the right of way. And compliant.
Oh, I'm familiar with
flow.
this area.
So, answer the question.
The only thing is the property lines with 10 feet. That section of the flag is 10 feet wide itself. That's an issue.
Oh, we permitted it in the past. We permitted for the existing walkway.
I don't know.
Do we have permits for the existing?
Do you have a copy of the permit by any chance, Billy? Or?
So the original walkway was above high water in the village, so it did not have a trustee's permit.
Oh. So now we're getting into a problem.
Well, it's a reverse right of way. The property to the north is part of a common preserve. So there's
Yes,
no
that's right.
structures or house or anything on that. It's all wetland.
It's not going to interfere with navigation.
There is
There's
no
no-
navigation at the end of this creek.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
No, it's not the navigation part, Ed. It's just what we've been doing as far as the 10-foot setback on either side of the
Well,
property line.
We're keeping it right in that reverse flag, and it's not a right of way. It's a real piece of property. So it.
And what's to the south?
Conforming any other way. Pardon me?
To the south?
To the south is a house that's large, and I believe they have a dock. It's just showing on the, right there.
Right here.
Aerial for you guys, so you can see.
And you can see that.
This is off, I think. The lines are off, but
I can see the walkway on. But there's that strange piece that's just north is it's commonly owned for the 5 or 6 properties that are there.
this piece.
Yes.
We don't start talking pie again.
Apple pie.
I can always go ask Chris when the walkway is permitted. I'll go ask Chris about that.
You could ask Chris. Yeah, find out what's up with that.
You're extending out from the current one that's there? That's the plan, right?
Exactly.
So the current one wasn't in technically, well, according to that, it's still in our jurisdiction, but
It showed on all the surveys ending at high water.
What's the deal with that other dock on the other side there?
we don't know.
Well, what's the dimension? I mean, I don't know if it's an accurate dimension there that's shown from the dock to the property lines.
But we don't even know if that's permitted or anything.
Yeah, the issue, the property owner uses it for paddle boards right now, and right now he has to walk through about 3 feet of muck to get into any navigable water for a paddleboard. So not looking for anything other than just paddleboard use at the end of his existing right of way.
How much of an extension is it to the current?
Yeah.
So isn't that
It's
close to it?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
overall, it's 45 feet, but most of that is stairs. So it's probably 30-foot extent. It looks like it's a 30-foot extension.
Wait, so you want a 30-foot extension to the current one?
Looks less than that, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
it only protrudes into the bay by about 15.
Because that overhead photo had the current one right
Right
at
up
high
against it.
tide.
Yeah, you could faintly see the stairs. I think right here are those stairs. So it's 30 feet is from mean high water here. It looks like, right?
Yes. And there's
So this is the
stairs
this
creep
is
into
this-
half of that.
So it's like
this is the
15 feet
section.
out.
It's about 15. It's around 15.
And so that's going to become the stairs, the 15
Right.
feet.
The
You're going to basically hitch everything seaward 15 feet.
Exactly. So
Can
the
you make
net,
those removable? Can you make those aluminum removable stairs?
We can. We have all of our stairs that lead into the water are carriage bolt removable. So we like wood because it's a little less expensive, but you certainly can do it any way you want.
Yeah, I actually would prefer that, but
Okay.
it does ice up down there if it gets cold enough.
Yeah.
So.
So we'll make them aluminum.
We have to decide whether we want to.
We've,
I mean, it's a dead end canal.
but
It's
we permitted stuff like this in Remsenburg. In Aspetuck Creek.
Yeah.
This is this is something that we've done before. Wells Creek. I know we've done.
I get if it's an issue, if we're impeding on somebody else's right of ways, but here there are no one else to impede against.
I think
I
for
have no
15
problem with
feet, it's not worth the headache of arguing it.
I don't see if there was a boat next house next to it, and
Yeah.
you're not even going to see this dock, and we
You don't see it now. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
So adding 15 feet, you're right, it's not going to make much of a difference.
I'm
I
going
have
to
no
say
problem.
advance it.
Scott.
listen, I didn't have a problem with 2-3 inches or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like.
Yeah, but I can pull up at
You-
least
you-
2 or
you-
3 permits that
You,
we've done this on, so that I know.
I have no problem. So.
common sense.
That's yes.
It's common sense. I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah. All right, keep going.
Can I be so bold to
Advance
take
it.
that as an advance?
I think we can advance it.
Plans.
Stamp limit on that? Stamp plans, yes, of course. And then, I think I've got one more, 400 Dune Road. This hopefully will be very simple. This was a permit that just expired.
Oh,
So
you already
we-
had the permit.
We reapplied for the exact same thing.
Gotcha.
He missed the window to renew it by a month. So he told me he's gotta go back to the drawing board. Exact same.
Plus to pay higher fees now.
He had to pay more fees, and we explained that to him as well. He was in the middle of rebuilding a neighboring house that he owns, and completely lost track of it. No, we reminded him.
You good with this, Matt?
Yeah.
You good with the higher fees?
Advance.
You just need stamp plans for that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, guys. Long day, so I'll let you guys carry
Yeah,
on.
you're not kidding. Now we've got Southampton Town, Shinnecock Bay, Village of Southampton, L.K. McLean. Been here since the crack of the sun coming up, right?
This is a new application, so.
Didn't you get the memo?
Yeah.
How are you?
Rich Caruso, L.K. McLean Associates, representing the village.
This is just to remind the board, I believe this is just a year ago we had those come before us about the
You'll have to put that
down
on
here
the bill,
on Taylor Creek. There was some issues with some pass we passed with a he came about a year ago to discuss it with us. And this is just see, they can apply for a CPF.
CPF?
Sorry, this is for Boysen, correct?
Yeah, Taylor Creek Habitat Restoration.
Right.
About a year ago, he came before us. But
Yeah, we met out in the field, James. I think you and I met out in the
We did,
field.
yeah.
That was
With Steve Phillips.
with Steve Phillips. That was how long ago?
about a year ago, right?
Oh, it's north end of Taylor's
Right?
Creek.
So
It
it's
goes under the
it's
road.
falling apart.
Yeah, it's collapsed. Yeah, it's all collapsed. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
culvert's
last year
falling
we
apart.
discussed this.
Yeah.
Joe's been working on this for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been about a year.
Yeah, they want to continue the wetland, or the water wants to be able to go.
That was the
north.
one where you had like the blatant photo of like the healthy side,
Yeah.
not healthy side.
Yeah, I'm
It's like
fully
what-
supportive of this.
Yeah.
So where are we at with it?
They're applying for CPF, right? Is that what this whole thing's about?
I wasn't even sure if it was CPF related, but we are just gonna
I
spin
know
it to.
Steve wanted to apply for CPF, so I guess they want approval from us to
For the
approve
project.
that-
You just want
this
approval
and,
from us.
Right.
you know,
Yep, we're gonna just be expanding it to be a 2x2 box culvert with a natural like stone lined bottom to be more friendly of aquatic life passage. And instead of having a bulkhead on the northern side, we're gonna do a little bit stone sloped with plantings within. And then we're just gonna do a 3-to-1 restoration with.
What's the height of it overall?
What?
What's the height of it?
Height of what, the stone?
No, the culvert.
It's 2x2, so
2x2?
it's gonna be a 1.5 after a 6-inch line bottom. Currently, I believe it's a
Chances of clearing that out. Well, we don't care.
Well, we're also proposing an access cover right off the roadway. So if they need to do any cleaning, they'll be
We
able
can
to.
back it.
Yeah, then it's good.
Village in the village is gonna.
Yeah, as long as
This will allow like fish to go in and out if
Yes.
the alewives do get.
Yeah,
up there.
right, if
Or
they do
otters.
go up there.
Or otters.
River otters, yeah.
Fully supportive.
Muskrat,
I'm fully
muskrats.
supportive of this project.
Yeah.
And this project should advance, and this is for the municipality.
So we'll
Obviously,
waive it,
So, yeah, we waive
Fees
those
will be
fees,
waived.
right. I mean, it's also on for 1
So there you
o'clock,
go.
so it's good to go.
All right.
It's a good thing you got up super early this morning.
You have stamp
Stamp
plans?
plans.
Do we-
We can send them in as soon as possible, yeah.
Well, we're approving it today, so I don't know if it's gonna be, if that's kosher.
I think it's fine.
Advanced pending stamp plans.
We have to have stamp plans.
So we can't.
You can, but you can certainly advance it
Yes.
on the consultant's assurances that we'll have it yet today, stamped.
I can try to get it to you today.
That's
yeah.
fine.
Can you?
On that assurance, you could do it that way.
As
Yes.
soon as possible, yeah.
Can they make that like when they pass the resolution later? Can they just say pending the stamp plans, or is that
No,
necessary?
no,
Oh.
no. I wouldn't advise that one.
No, I think
But-
they'll be here.
We're not gonna have a resolution on for it today, are we?
No, we did, yeah.
That's
That's the
Oh,
problem.
it's already on. It's already.
It's on the agenda.
That's the problem.
It was
The better
requested. that-
practice would be not to do it, but in light of the situation, yeah, you can, based on his assurances that we'll get it ASAP.
Absolutely.
The municipal's engineer, municipal's
Yeah.
project, it's a culvert, it's collapsed,
Give
it's
it
gotta be
moving.
repaired, it's gotta keep moving, we'll have those plans.
Good,
Thank you.
thank you all.
Thank you. The next one that we have is the Lake Agawam
I
Conservancy,
believe this is just a renewal for, because the permit lapsed.
Rue Environmental.
So it's a renewal, not a renewal. It's
Okay.
they went through all their renewals, so it's a re-up basically. So it's technically they have to have a new application in so that they can get another 4 renewals. So
Have they
it's-
applied for,
What's that?
have they applied for, are they come in to present?
Yes,
or-
this is
Okay.
the application.
Okay,
They ran out of renewals, so they're just re-upping.
okay.
This is similar to Billy Mack's client?
It's the same. It's water lily removal. You guys
Okay.
have no issues
Same as
with
there always
that.
was.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah. Oh, that's it.
It should advance.
You can advance it.
Absolutely.
All right.
The next we have is, we've done,
That's it.
we've got the general permit applications for determination, final stamp plans. Madison Avenue Capital Partners.
You got Parsons? Did we go over him?
Yeah, that was Billy
we
Mack's
did
last
that.
one. That was the
That's
one that was just a re-up.
Madison Avenue.
So we got everything, James?
Yes, I'm pulling it up right now.
Yep.
This is the 1323, right?
Yeah,
Yep, we're all good.
everything's good on that.
That's a good project.
Good with that.
All right. Advance it.
And then the other one was.
That was a dock application.
That's good to go. This is the one they moved over from over here
Yeah.
to get the proper depth.
We got stamp plans. I see Lisa's here. You want to speak to this at all, Lisa? You good?
We're good.
It's all
All
fine.
right, we're fine.
All right.
Advance it.
Okay. So I think that concludes our very busy work session agenda for today. I think that we
I
can
had to hit the head quick.
nobody has anything further, we can adjourn, maybe take a break, we gotta go into executive session.
Yeah.
Okay, so I make the motion.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Marin and trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, guys, take a break and then we'll go to.